Switzerland just made the most controversial military pistol decision of 2025. On December 4th, the Swiss Federal Office for Defense Procurement, Arma Suisse, announced that the SIG Sauer P320 would replace the P220 as the standard service pistol of the Swiss Armed Forces. 140,000 units, initial order of 50,000, a contract worth tens of millions of dollars. 30 years of service life planned. Here is what makes this decision remarkable. The Glock G45 met every single mandatory technical criterion in the evaluation. The P320 did not. The evaluation team specifically documented that the P320 required technical improvements to meet Swiss military requirements and then selected it anyway. The country that built the most precise battle rifle of the Cold War, the country that spent 50 years trusting its own SIG P320 with a documented reliability record that most military pistols never achieved. That country looked at over 100 active civil lawsuits in U.S. courts, looked at the documented drop safety concerns, looked at the fact that the competing pistol had already passed every technical test, and chose the P320. This video is not about whether Switzerland made the right decision. This video is about what that decision reveals, about how military procurement actually works, about the P320's complicated global status, and about what happens when economic and political considerations override technical evaluation results. Stay until the end, because the detail buried in the official Arma Suisse announcement is the one that explains everything. And it is not about the pistol at all. Let's go. What Switzerland was replacing, the P220, designated Pistol 75 in Swiss service, entered the Swiss Armed Forces in 1975, 50 years of service. That is an operational record that almost no military pistol achieves in any country. The P220 is a double-action / single-action pistol chambered in 9mm, designed by SIG Sauer in Switzerland and manufactured in Neuhausen am Rheinfall, the same facility where SIG Sauer's Swiss operations are still based today. The Swiss military adopted their own manufacturer's product, used it for 50 years, and was now replacing it with a different product from the same manufacturer's American subsidiary. The irony runs deeper than it appears on the surface. The P220 in Swiss service has a documented reliability record that most military pistols never achieve. Swiss military maintenance culture, meticulous, systematic, and properly resourced, kept P220s in service condition for decades. The pistols being replaced in 2025 are some of the same units that entered service in 1975. That is 50 years of functional service from a DA/SA platform that Swiss soldiers trusted completely, a platform with 0 recalls, 0 litigation, and 0 documented systemic failures over its entire service life. The P320, that is replacing it, is striker-fired modular and carries a litigation history that the P220 never generated in 5 decades of service, more than 100 active civil lawsuits in U.S. courts, a voluntary upgrade program that SIG offered in 2017 without acknowledging a design defect, new filings in January 2026 citing internal documents, a state, New Jersey, that filed suit demanding a mandatory recall. Switzerland made a deliberate decision to move from one to the other, the country that produced the STG-W57 without compromise, that maintained the P220 for 50 years without incident, evaluated 3 pistols in a rigorous process, and selected the one with the most complicated public record of any service pistol currently in military use. Understanding why requires looking at what the evaluation actually found. What the evaluation actually found. The Swiss evaluation process was rigorous. 5 candidates were initially assessed. 3 were down-selected for comprehensive testing: the Glock 45 Gen 5, the Heckler & Koch SFP9, and the SIG Sauer P320 OX Carry Pro. Those 3 pistols underwent intensive technical testing, field trials with Swiss troops, and logistical assessments. The results of that process produced a finding that Arma Suisse's announcement handled carefully, and that deserves to be stated directly. The Glock G45 met all mandatory technical criteria and was classified as suitable for service. It passed every test the Swiss military required. The SIG Sauer P320 did not meet all mandatory criteria. The official Arma Suisse statement acknowledged that the P320 required technical improvements before it could be considered ready for procurement. Those improvements were guaranteed by SIG Sauer as a condition of the contract, and Arma Suisse determined that those improvements were achievable and would be implemented during the Swiss production setup. That sequence deserves to be understood clearly. A pistol that passed every test was not selected. A pistol that failed to meet certain mandatory criteria was selected, on the condition that the manufacturer would fix the problems as part of setting up Swiss production. For a civilian buyer reading this, that sequence should sound familiar. It is structurally similar to what the P320's critics have argued about the platform's introduction to the US market a decade earlier. A platform with known issues, a manufacturer's commitment to address them, and a procurement decision made before the fixes were verified. Why Switzerland chose the P320 anyway. The official explanation from Arma Suisse is specific. The P320 was selected based on an overall arms policy and economic review that highlighted substantial advantages for the SIG model, specifically the lowest life cycle cost over its 30-year service life. That is procurement language for it was cheaper. But the economic argument does not fully explain the decision. The complete explanation requires understanding one sentence in the Arma Suisse announcement that received almost no coverage in English-language firearms media. The manufacturer has assured that production will be set up in Switzerland. Switzerland's Federal Council has an armament policy strategy, finalized in June 2025, that requires security-relevant industrial capabilities to be established inside Swiss borders. SIG Sauer AG, which operates a manufacturing facility in Neuhausen am Rheinfall, guaranteed that essential elements of P320 production would be relocated to Switzerland as part of the contract. The Glock G45 is manufactured in Austria, HKSF P9 is manufactured in Germany. Neither manufacturer offered or could offer the guarantee of Swiss domestic production that SIG Sauer provided. Switzerland did not just buy a pistol. Switzerland bought 50 years of service, a domestic production capability, and a supply chain that does not depend on foreign manufacturing. The P320's technical shortcomings were, in the procurement team's assessment, correctable within the framework of establishing Swiss production. The Glock's technical superiority in testing was offset by its inability to offer what the Swiss armament policy strategy required. That is the detail buried in the announcement, and it explains everything. The global P320 picture. Switzerland's adoption makes it the fifth military to standardize on the P320 platform, alongside the United States, Canada, Australia, and Denmark. That list deserves examination. The United States adopted the P320 as the M17 and M18 in 2017. The contract that started the platform's military career, and within months, also started its litigation career when officers began reporting discharges without trigger contact. The US military versions carry a mandatory external manual safety. The civilian versions do not. Denmark adopted the P320X Carry. Australia adopted the P320X Carry Pro. Canada adopted a P320 variant. Each adoption involved a different configuration, because the P320's modularity allows different countries to specify different frame sizes, slide lengths, and safety configurations for their specific requirements. Switzerland selected the P320X Carry Pro, the same variant Australia chose. The Swiss version will be manufactured in Switzerland, with technical improvements that Arma Suisse determined were necessary before procurement. Those improvements will be requalified before the first delivery. The irony of the global picture is specific. The same platform that has generated over 100 active civil lawsuits in the United States, including lawsuits filed by US law enforcement officers against the civilian version, is simultaneously the platform that 5 of the world's most rigorous military procurement systems have independently selected as their standard service pistol. Both facts are true. They are not contradictory. They reflect the distinction between the civilian P320 sold over the counter without a manual safety and the military P320 variant specified with specific safety configurations by procurement offices that evaluated the platform's operational requirements independently. What this means. Switzerland's P320 decision is uncomfortable to analyze honestly because it generates conclusions that conflict with each other. The technical evaluation found that the Glock G45 performed better in formal testing. That is documented. Buyers who select pistols based on technical evaluation results should note that Switzerland's technical evaluators agreed with them and then watched their government select the other pistol anyway. The economic and industrial policy arguments that drove the selection are legitimate. Domestic production capability, supply chain sovereignty, and life cycle cost are real factors in military procurement that private buyers do not face. Switzerland made a defensible decision based on a complete set of criteria that includes factors a civilian buyer correctly ignores. The P320's litigation history in the United States is real and documented. It is also specifically about the civilian variant without a manual safety. The Swiss military P320 will be specified with the safety configurations that military service requires. Those are different products sharing a platform, and conflating them produces inaccurate conclusions in both directions. What Switzerland's decision most clearly demonstrates is that the P320 controversy in the United States has not prevented the platform from winning competitive military evaluations in 5 countries. Those evaluations do not validate the civilian variant's safety record, but they do validate the platform's operational capability when specified correctly, which is exactly what SIG Sauer's marketing has argued and what the US litigation has disputed. The country that used its own SIG P320 for 50 years, that built the STGW57 without compromise for alpine precision requirements, that evaluated 3 pistols rigorously and determined that one passed every test, chose the other one. Switzerland made a procurement decision. Whether it was the right decision depends entirely on which criteria you weight most heavily. The technical evaluators weighted one set, the Federal Council weighted another, and SIG Sauer, by guaranteeing Swiss domestic production, gave Switzerland a reason to choose that no other manufacturer could offer. The P320 is now the service pistol of the Swiss Armed Forces. The Glock that passed every test is not. The manufacturer that built the P320 that served Switzerland for 50 years will now build the P320 that is supposed to serve for the next 30. Whether that decision ages well depends on things that have not happened yet. The requalification tests, the Swiss production setup, and the 30 years of service ahead. What we know today is the decision, and now you know the full context behind it. Do you think Switzerland made the right call? Tell us in the comments, and tell us whether you think the production in Switzerland argument justified selecting a pistol that didn't pass all mandatory criteria. If you want the full breakdown on what the P320's military variants actually differ from the civilian version, the safety, the engineering, the specific configurations, drop Part 2 below. Subscribe to Tactical Toolbox. No sponsors, no manufacturer relationships, just the analysis that actually matters.